Hey guys, want to take a look here how this thing works. Just picked it up a few days ago. We're looking at the Milwaukee 3H drive right angle impact. Got the gear cover off here, cast aluminum piece. You can tell I did use this for a couple days. So far so good, I like it. One thing I'll note is you see this cover, there's actually not a bearing in there by the looks of it. You try and spin it, and it's not spinning. It's pretty sharp too, that edge, but it does have grooves cut in it, and I'm wondering if that's because it helps maybe the grease lubricate it better on this surface right here. So let's see if we can wobble the shaft out. I'm not going to bother taking off this snap ring. If you would focus, I'll show you. Having a hard time focusing here. Yeah, there you go. Small snap ring there. I don't think I have snap ring pliers that small. So odds are we're probably not going to take that apart. This got quite slippery. And I'm also right-handed, currently using my left. So we're just going to switch off hands. Like I said, I mean, 200 bucks. I was pretty impressed with it. I think it's going to be good for transmission guys who are, they need to take transfer cases off, you know, doing R&Rs of transmissions and such. Even exhaust work. It's probably going to be pretty handy for that as well. Alright, gonna have to put the camera down to do that. Okay, if you look here, this gear will not come out. We will have to remove this small snap ring right here. But for right now, I really don't want to take this apart. Kind of have a thought in my mind of how this all works. When I did lift this up, it was simply it looked normal, just like an impact wrench. Your half inch, your 3/8 corded or air powered, or cordless impact. It was just that same hammering mechanism. Yeah, I had it up while I put the camera down, but with holding the camera, it's a little tricky. With all this grease on there too, it doesn't make it any easier. It takes some focusing. I really don't want to damage that gasket. There we go. I think we got a good shot at it now. At least I know it's not just gonna pop up and fly all over because the other gear is holding it back. It is holding back the impact mechanism. All right, let me see if I can show you. So you kind of see a little bit of the spring and the hammer mechanism in there. Looks like there's a good amount of grease because it keeps on falling off of my hands. So, but anyway, you've got that other gear right back in there. Kind of hard to see, but that's holding it back. So we would have to take the snap ring off. And like I said, I don't think I have snap ring pliers that small. So I think now what I'm going to do is put this cover back on, and then I'll take these screws out here. And there's probably going to be a spiral bevel gear on the motor shaft that goes into here, but we'll see in a moment. Okay, turns out I do have to take the snap ring off because I have to get the alignment correct on the two gears, and after removing the 4 screws that go from the gear case to the body, it still will not come off. So I'm assuming probably the gear from the motor goes inside, so that we're going to need to take this apart a little bit further. So I did go ahead and get the snap ring off very carefully. Don't want to lose that. I would like to use this. What I did was I used this pick right here. and then a flathead screwdriver over top, shielding it from flying away. Then I just slowly worked it around until it just popped up. Now I still have to get this back on, so who knows if we'll be successful at that, but I think I can do it. Alright, so now I'm going to pause this and take this gear off right here. Okay, so we go ahead and got this off. Very difficult. Just need to take your time, use some good picks, a couple of small flathead screwdrivers, work it back and forth. It's very slippery. If you're going to attempt this at home, take your time, because you may not ever get it to work again. So having a closer look at this, this is a bearing right here. And I know my camera's not focusing well. It's because I don't have a tripod yet, and my hand keeps shaking. It's a 69 8Z. Interesting. I'm trying to find what brand it is. Hopefully something decent. You just barely make it out. Outdo. Still won't focus. Sorry about that, guys. Hopefully eventually I'll have a better setup. So you want to remember exactly how all this comes apart. But again, pretty small bearing, and I imagine that thing is really spinning fast. And we already know we don't have a bearing on the top cover here. Just grease and looks like a pressed in part into a cast aluminum piece. So now we'll just continue. Hopefully everything will come out. I'm going to hope and pray that I get this back together. I'm going to pause this again and I'll be right back. Okay, got it all apart. Not sure if there's any timing on these gears. We'll find out. But not too difficult. It looks like powdered metal though. Let me go ahead and wipe it down. I could be wrong. I hope I am. Without having a microscope, I'm going to assume this is definitely injection molded. Just because you even look at the lines on the edges. If the camera would focus. But there's a line around here. There's no way, the way that this is shaped, you're going to get that on a lathe. So we'll just go put that to the side. And then this piece here, here's your hammer. I guess I wonder how it compares to, say, the 3/8 stubby. A little bit different setup, obviously. But you look in here, here's the anvil. Should be able to pop that up. Working it back and forth like everything else we've had to do to get this apart. It's coming. It's just, again, I'm one-handed right now. Okay, so we got it out. Just had to break the seal of all that fresh new grease and use 2 hands on it. So we have a rubber seal here. Hopefully long term that holds up, because that's spinning obviously with this whole thing. I did see some grease start to come out underneath here after using it, just probably 6 times. Inside here, let's see if we can get a good shot. Looks like we don't have any. There's no roller bearings. It's just relying on what grease we have around here and this O-ring. There is a groove inside of this case for this O-ring, but I don't see any kind of other bearing other than the grease that's going to lubricate it and keep it spinning free. So pretty small though. I mean, we can put it next to this. You know, that's a pretty small hammer. So that motor must be really spinning fast. Alright, so we'll see what else. See how much more we can get into. I will have this back together today and using it again tomorrow. Trust me. Alright, let me see if I can get this out. Okay, so what we had here was a couple of T27s down at the bottom that hold the shaft. This is a long shaft here. And that's good. I like to see that because that's going to keep just this from floating around so much, because other than the gears here and the where is it the cover plate, you really don't have anything else holding this down, you know, good force. So it should just come right out now. A little bit of wiggling. I don't know if you can see this, but after removing those two T27s and pulling up on that plate that wraps around this shaft to hold it to the housing, it's actually pulling the bearing up with it. So the bearing is stuck to this shaft right now, and I'm not sure I'm going to be able to get this out. There's really no way to get in there because of this other gear. I've kind of just been sitting here playing with it back and forth, hoping I get lucky. I'm going to keep going at it, I guess. Still no luck after 5 more minutes of messing around with that shaft. So I've got the shaft pulled up as much as possible, and it seems like it's freed up from the gear on the motor side. So now I'm going to try and remove all the T10s. It looks like I've got enough clearance. This housing does not go, the plastic doesn't go underneath the metal housing, so I should be able to at least separate this end of it, maybe be able to see what's going on in there. Okay, so we got all the T10s out holding the body together, the two sides. Got the metal clip out. Try and keep everything organized throughout the process. And it looks like this is going to pop right off. Okay, so we got it apart and I went a little bit further with it. First things first, we'll look at the housing. It's PA6 30%, glass fiber. Pretty rigid though, not bad. Mainly one thing you want to see how long lasts is the rubber. See how well it holds up over the years, over time, with oily hands, you know, transmission guys. Anybody, you know, just living in the shop is pretty hard on these. Very dusty. But only, you know, these two long sections here, nothing but a few, just two little areas where it's bonded through to the PA6. So, but pretty strong. When I had the camera put down, felt pretty rigid. So I'm happy with that. But you look over at this and it's like, wow, what? There's a wire going from the, looks like it's going back to the trigger or back here to the battery. I haven't got it that far apart yet, but right off the bat, I'm thinking either this could be for heat, if this thing gets so hot, or could be for positioning, or maybe, when I say positioning, I'm thinking, well, maybe for the forward and reverse, if there's any kind of, I'm trying to think of what I want to say, just how the modes work even. but I'll figure it out. Bear with me. Alright, so we took it apart a little bit further, and I just paused it just so I could have a better handle on things, a little bit more control. Okay, so a couple things. Trigger switch. Not sure what brand it is. There's no felt around here, no seal. But you have this right here that just pops right into a hole on the body of the tool, and then it just presses on that. But you don't see the actuator part because that's covered up by this. So I wouldn't worry about that. This wire going to the housing, I'm starting to believe that it's got to be for temperature because it runs back here to where your battery plugs into. So even though I don't believe there's any heat sink in here or anything like that, maybe it monitors the battery temperature, or maybe this maybe this has to do with the level of amp hours the battery has. Not too sure. This is all new to me. So inside here we got a gear. Looks like on the motor side I just went ahead and pulled this right through the motor rotor. Pretty small bearing. Not a brand that I've heard of. And the shaft, I believe that's also powder metal by looking at it. Not sure. There's the brass at the back end where they balance the tool. And this must be a special bearing because it's blue. We got look at that clip on there. Never seen one like that. Pretty neat. All the electronics in here. Now I'm not trying to be like all the other videos out there. Like I said, I do like Milwaukee, but I get curious, and to me this is a fun challenge. I'll have this all apart. I'll have it all back together, and then everybody will know, what it looks like inside. Maybe if years from now you want to take this apart, grease the tool. Maybe it'll give you some kind of clue, help you out a little bit so you're not lost. But everything in here looks pretty good. They missed a little spot of the adhesive or the sealer here to keep the moisture out and just to keep a better bond going from your button pad. This is going to be your heat sink here, this big chunk of aluminum. And another thing I wanted to notice was the date on here. You might not be able to read it, but you can see just in front of my tip of my finger, 11. So we have November 12th, 2019 on there. Again, I apologize that you guys can't read it. But overall, it looks good inside. All the soldered connections are nice. You can see we got pretty thick copper for the windings of the motor. That's probably right on par with what your stubby has. Stubby impact, I mean. Really looks good. The switch, I mean, it feels good. You have just a little rotator style with a selector. Feels pretty nice. Probably nickel or copper impregnated terminals for your battery. Well, you can't really, there's not too much wear on them yet, but they look like a little bit of gold showing through. So we're gonna see if I can get this out, and then if I can, I'll show you. Alright, so I've taken out the two screws. that hold this in. This is a separate piece of aluminum. You can tell right off the bat just by the color difference. That's how I was able to tell pretty quickly that maybe there's screws, and then I just glanced over and yep, there's screws right there. So I don't know if I'll be able to do it one-handed. I'm sure there's a O-ring seal in here that's gonna keep things tight, make it harder. All right, let me see. And what I thought was true, we got a O-ring around there and a groove. Got some more of that grease with that cover off. Another gear and 2 more screws. Boy, this thing's a lot more complicated than I thought, actually. That spins obviously right here. So this is where this holds your bearing right inside of here, right? For your motor. Goes on like so. And then the O-ring just keeps all the grease from leaking all out and blowing back with the fan all over everything. So that gear, again, it looks like it's powdered metal, just like all the gears so far. A little bit disappointed in that. I mean, even on the, we have another look here at the pinion. If this thing would focus, I'm trying to hold this camera as still as possible to give you guys a good look at it. But having trouble here. But from what I can tell by looking at it outside of the camera, is it doesn't look like it's forged. The coloring of it just forged steel has a different look to it, in my opinion, than powdered metal. This powdered metal is more gray than forged steel. It's just the process. So, all right. So let's see if this will come out or what we can. Got the 2 screws out, and looks like it's just gonna slide right out for us. Wow. Looks like maybe 2 bearings there, because that's such a long ways to go into this housing to meet up with the other gears we have. Wow. Now look at the size of that gear. Wow. There's the pinky finger next to it. Good size. Just as fat as mine. So that goes inside that hole, and then we have the top half or bottom half, depending on which way you're looking at it, that gear meeting up with this one, and then we have that gear right there going right up inside there. So this is a pretty complex, the most complex one I've taken apart so far. A lot different than a ratchet or a regular impact gun. So let's see if this will finally. Now this, actually, I'm not gonna go ahead and try any harder on this to get it out, because it just pops right out like that, no problem. All it was that whole time was this gear was hitting this plate just enough so it wouldn't allow it to pop right out. So here's another bearing, same brand, Outdo, just like on all the other ones that I've encountered so far. And then we have a screw actually holding that, probably another T10 or maybe T15, holding that on. I really hope I can get this back together. And then of course this side here is flat on 2 sides to lock that gear on. So let me just put this down, quite a lot here. A lot more than I thought. This is much more involved on this one than anything else I've taken apart. I've had the right angle die grinder apart before, and that thing was nothing compared to this. But we are going to get this back together. I'm going to start on that process now, but I'll just give you a look inside this housing because we've got the whole housing, all the internal parts removed of it, and it's still pretty. It's got some weight to it. I mean, this is a nice part. One thing I don't really like about it is the finish. I mean, they could have just, I don't know. I don't really like that color because it just gets all beat to hell. All my other impacts are out in the work truck right now, but you know, they just get scratched and the color changes. So I just think they should just leave it natural. They made this, to me, looks cheap. So I'm gonna start assembling this. Hopefully, get this thing together as quick as possible, but do it the right way. And as I go, I'll keep you guys updated, and we will get this thing turning again. Okay, one more quick thing. Just look at the process on what it took to make this. I mean, this is all one shaft, and this I believe is forged. Again, the coloring. Look at the color difference between that gear right there and this part of the shaft. You know, look at it. This gear and then this part of the shaft. So big difference. This would be pressed on, and then that last, you know, well then this plate that retains it, and then you have the bearing. They've got a screw as well as a washer. But look at that, the washer. It's not even. Look at that. I'm not sure if you can see that. It's not even centered on the bearing. I'm not sure if I should fix that. Probably just gonna leave it alone. Don't have a torque spec on this screw, so I don't want to create problems. I want to use this thing. All right. We are tightening up the T27s inside of here, and then we're gonna put that back in. Okay, something very important I want to mention here. This gear, we remember, this goes inside of here. Got these screws all tightened down, very slowly and evenly, so we have that bearing sitting in there properly. This gear is forged, definitely. After wiping off some of the grease and having a look, you can see the marks of it turning. I'm turning the camera in the motion that they're going, and then on this end too. We have this powdered metal gear pressed onto the forged and hopefully likely hardened gear on the shaft, and then of course we got these two bearings and then another plate to secure that in. Looking good though. I like all the hardware to keep this thing tight, keep the parts from floating around in there. So we're going to continue the reassembly. Okay, so we had the screws behind this housing tightened up. Behind this housing here, they're all tightened up evenly. They feel like they're even by hand. We also added a little bit of grease. So, you know, we may have lost a little bit, but it's really not a big deal. I just felt like it would be a good idea to add a little bit. So, we're just going to tighten these up and continue on. It's coming. We're getting somewhere. And we're ready to put this half on. We are moving right along. Hopefully this went, I think it went there because we had to fight that little bastard on. But so far, not too bad. I'm only into it maybe 10 minutes on the reassembly. I did leave a few of the screws out for now, just until I know it's gonna work. But trigger's good. This is spinning. Added just a touch of grease. Definitely was the rubber O-ring around there that made it so hard to get that out. Alright, gonna continue here. Gotta go with this guy next. Alright, here goes nothing. Think I got enough pics. Definitely gonna have to put the camera down for this one, boys. We got her. Just took snap-on to help. Almost ready to test. Alright, got all these screws started by hand, which I highly recommend on all fasteners whenever you're taking anything apart with very, very fine threads like these. I think we're going to be good. Everything has been spinning free so far. Got these screws here holding the case to the plastic. Just going to tighten these up and then go ahead and put the last couple screws in, I guess, and then we'll put a battery in and try it. Alright, here goes nothing with a 2.0. Or just popped it in. Let's try reverse. Forward. Well, I guess we were successful. Well, if you guys have any questions, comments, anything positive to say, like I said, don't judge me too hard on this. Guys, this was my first video. I really enjoy doing this stuff. Might take the stubby apart at some point. And see what it looks like inside. I've got a ton of Milwaukee tools. But yeah, it was a good time. Definitely a little challenging, but overall, I'm happy with it. I suggest you go buy one and use a 6 amp hour battery like I do, which is in the work truck currently. So, sorry to be long-winded. Alright guys, have a good night. Bye-bye. Thanks for watching.